This is a big topic and we are going to be tackling it head on in this video, and this is going to be your guide on how to prevent and also potentially treat hair loss. This is a skincare channel, but I know a lot of you guys are males according to my YouTube statistics, and considering the age range of you guys, this is definitely not a video to skip out on. So today we're going to be talking about hair loss. Now we're going to be talking about what really works, but not just that, we're going to go even a step further and also talk about what is proven to work. But with a video like this, it's important to say that the word working will mean a lot of different things for multiple people, and everyone's results will be different. So hair loss, thinning, these are all words that a lot of us have heard about. But there is a scientific name for male pattern baldness, and it's known as androgenic alopecia. And so that is a type of hair loss we're going to be covering in today's video. And in this video, we're also going to be going over the myths and the facts, because there are a ton out there, and of course these myths and facts are backed by scientific studies, so there is some support to these claims. So male pattern baldness is a lot more common than you might think. So by 30, around 25% of males will experience some sort of hair loss, but it can actually happen a lot earlier than 30. So hair loss is not just about aging, meaning it can happen at any age around your late teenage years or even your early 20s. And the biggest factor of this type of hair loss will be genetics, but there are other factors that also have a part in this, and this is things such as lifestyle and hormones. So genetics being such a big role. For example, if your grandparents had it, or even your parents, then there's a pretty good chance that you'll also experience some balding as well. Meaning, it's all about those inherited genes that can influence your hair follicles. Now, I also mentioned hormones, and this is another key cause. And so when these hormones go out of balance, things can go way off course. But then one of the last causes is lifestyle. And this is things such as stress, life, diet, and certain habits that we're going to get into that can lead to this hair loss. Okay, so we covered a little bit into why hair loss happens. So now let's get to the part on what can be done about hair loss. And the list is definitely not short. Okay, so a really important thing to do that probably goes unnoticed a lot of the time when dealing with hair loss is to take before photos, specifically of the affected areas, because results won't always be as clear as day. Also, it keeps the process a bit more involved, and of course, when there is good results, you get to see these firsthand. So a good time to take photos would be around every 2 months. And also, another thing that's super important to consider before taking anything for hair loss is that once you start these treatments, it is important to continue these for the rest of your life, or obviously as long as you want to prevent hair loss. Because if not, you'll be at risk of losing all of the growth and all that time, effort, and money invested in your hair if you're not as consistent as you should be with treating your hair loss. Which by now you would think they would have come up with a magic solution to cure hair loss, but we're not there yet. So because we're on the topic of talking about the most important things regarding hair loss, this tip is definitely up there, and it could be considered in the top 3. And it's the power of early intervention. And so what this means is that the earlier you start to notice some sort of hair loss, and this could take the form of a receding hairline, thinning, or even both. So the first thing to do is to seek professional advice. So once you know it's hair loss, the saying goes, the earlier the better. But early has different meanings for different people, because as mentioned before, hair loss can happen in your late teens, early 20s, or not till your 30s, 40s, or even later years. So it all depends on when it starts for you. But when it does start for you and you do start to notice it, it's important to get on the treatments as soon as possible. That is, of course, if you want to start the lifetime journey of growing back your hair. Right, so let's talk about treatments. Okay, now first up into growing back your hair, and probably one of the most well-known and important ones, starting with Minoxidil. But it's also very popularly known, especially in the US, by its brand name Rogaine, and Regaine here in the UK. So like most treatments, there are a few different forms in which it can be administered. So for Minoxidil, they have it in a liquid form, foam form, and fairly recently in a tablet form. But since we mentioned Rogaine, we're going to be talking about the topical treatment, meaning the one that you apply on the surface of your scalp. So Minoxidil, Rogaine, or whatever you want to call it, has been proven to promote hair growth. And studies have shown that it can be effective for both men and women. And as previously mentioned, there is a Regaine or Rogaine for men and a Regaine and Rogaine for women. And these are readily over the counter, meaning you don't need a prescription for them. And in even better news, these are FDA approved. So this gives you that extra bit of reassurance that what you're using and investing your time, money, and also effort in is the real deal. Because we all know that there's a ton of stuff out there, not going to mention any specific names, that is right. So with the different forms of Minoxidil, it's important to follow the instructions, but the general instructions are that you apply it on the top of your scalp, and of course you want to gently rub it in, and then obviously wait till it dries to style your hair. And by following the instructions, this will also give you the highest chance of getting the best results. Okay, so let's move on to another part of what we could call the trifecta for hair loss, and that is finasteride, which is actually often used in conjunction with Minoxidil to maximize those results. And because we're talking about the trifecta for hair loss, Good news is that this treatment is also FDA approved. So Proscar finasteride is particularly effective for men. And there have also been some insane transformations with this. So a little bit of background into what finasteride does. It works by blocking the conversion of testosterone into a hormone that shrinks hair follicles. Now, unlike minoxidil, this is prescription only. So that means you'll either need to consult a doctor in person or online on an online pharmacy. And then from there, this will explain how often you'll need to take it and how much of it. And also a list of all the side effects, because there definitely are some that should be noted with this oral medication, and potentially when to increase your dosage. Third, to complete the trifecta for hair loss, let's move on to this guy right here. So this is a Derma Roller. Now, I've already done a video on my other social medias talking about a Derma Roller, probably a bit more in depth than I'm going to talk about it right now, but here's how it works. Now, a Derma Roller is usually thought of as a face treatment, but it can also be used on the face for beard growth as well as hair growth. If you look up close to the Derma Roller, you can see these tiny micro needles, depending on the length as well. The longer the length, the more visible the tiny needles will be. But there are tiny needles on the end of the Derma Roller, and essentially this is what gives it its efficacy. So the process involves rolling the Derma Roller across your scalp gently and not too many times, and this will create micro injuries on the scalp. Now, this may sound a bit more intense than the other methods we've talked about today, but research suggests that it can enhance the absorption of topical treatments like minoxidil. But for those of you who prefer more of a natural approach, let's get into that. Or for those who want to explore more options besides from the ones we've already spoken about, let's talk about the natural approach. And this includes oils such as peppermint and rosemary oil. And so these might be worth considering because studies have shown that these could have some promising results. So let's start with peppermint oil. Now, peppermint oil contains menthol, and so this menthol can help increase blood flow to the hair follicles, which in turn potentially helps hair growth. Now, the application process for oils compared to topical and oral treatments is definitely worth noting. So taking peppermint oil, for example, to apply it, you want to mix a few drops of peppermint oil with a carrier oil. So once you've done this, and obviously mix it around so it has an even spread, drop some of the mixture into your scalp so it covers all of the areas, and then gently massage it so you get that even distribution. And also, when it comes to oils, you want to leave it on for around 30 minutes, and then you can wash it out. So a perfect time to do it would be before a shampoo and conditioner day. Also, with this oil, you don't want to use it once a day or even twice a day, but it's important to use it around 2 to 3 times a week for the most optimum results. Or if you don't use shampoo or conditioner, first of all, I don't know how you do it because I can't get past those 2 to 3 weeks of having greasy hair. But if you don't wash your hair, I'm considering applying it at night because the carrier oil could give your hair that greasy look. Then for rosemary oil, the process is very similar to that of peppermint oil. So you want to mix a few drops of the rosemary oil into a carrier oil, and then apply enough so you have an even distribution, and then gently massage it into your scalp. Leave it on for 30 minutes before washing out, and then do this around 2 to 3 times a week. But also something important to note when it comes to this more natural approach is that the results, according to the studies, although results are different for everybody, they have not been shown to be as effective as some of the other methods mentioned earlier. So this is something to bear in mind, but if you mix all of these things together and it's right for you, then obviously the more the better. Okay, now like I said before, we're going to be talking about some myths and some facts, so let's get into that. So myth number 1 is that technology doesn't affect your hair. And by technology, I mean things like social media and hairstyles that may be promoted on there. And this is a myth because certain hairstyles, especially the ones that are super tight, can lead to hair loss. And so this is from consistent use of these tight hairstyles. So some easy ways to help prevent this would be to just take a break from these tight hairstyles every so often, and also to use protective styles. And the days you're not using these tight hairstyles, you could use protective styles and ones that put a lot less stress on your hair. Okay, so we know that peppermint oil contains menthol, and this is the thing that helps promote hair growth. Now with rosemary oil, it's super rich in antioxidants, and so this can help improve the circulation in the scalp, so therefore potentially stimulating hair growth. Okay, so a question that's asked quite frequently about hair loss is it true the earlier you start a hair loss treatment, the better your results will be? Well, you'll be surprised to know that this is actually true. An earlier intervention can lead to more successful outcomes in combating hair loss. So the sooner you address the issue, the better chance you have of preserving the hairs you have at the moment and stimulating new ones. And also remember, because hair loss can be progressive, taking action sooner rather than later can make a huge difference. So start when you can. So now, after speaking about why hair loss happens, what you can do about it, the different options, let's talk about how you can fit these in your routine. So step number 1, and this is just something you need to remember, is that consistency is key. It might be worth setting a schedule for these treatments. Now, whether this is in the morning or the night, find something that works for you. And this can be easy things like writing on a piece of paper, setting an alarm, or even a reminder. Also, the second thing to keep in mind is that results won't happen overnight. Results take time to happen, and this comes down to consistency and obviously patience. And this is also why I mentioned earlier, it's good to take photos of the progress from the very start all the way until when you finish, or just indefinitely, because while some of the results may go unnoticed to the eye, photos never lie. At least the ones you're taking shouldn't be, because it should be the same lighting, no editing, and just raw photo. And that is everything in this episode, in this series of hair loss that we're going to be talking about on how to prevent and also treat hair loss. So I hope you found part 1 of this video helpful. And even if you have any other tips, let me know in the comments. And of course, until then, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Check out one of my other videos on screen now.